A lot of my best talks actually are not in front of large groups. Unfortunately, a lot of my best material is when I'm by myself. I spend a lot of time reflecting and thinking, meditating, praying, and I drive a lot for my real estate business. So I'm on the road quite a bit, especially when I'm driving from the Valley to Tucson, which is a good hour and a half drive at least. And so yesterday that was the case. I was driving to Tucson and I was listening to an entrepreneur. She had put on a YouTube and I was just checking it out. And it's actually nothing that she said. It was just where I was at, where I felt like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish today? What do I want to do with the Mike Baltazar Experiment and why? And so a lot of it just has to do with imparting what was already given to me, gifted to me is the way I like to look at it. And so yesterday I was thinking, what is one thing that I want to gift to the next person? And whether they're an entrepreneur or not, whether they're in real estate or not, just a human that just wants to do better next year. What's one thing that I can gift to them? And what I came up with and what I ended up sharing with my brother Aaron later that day is how I was able to accomplish so much more by doing less. And it's because it's more than just relinquishing the control. I know as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are coached and mentored and taught and preached to let it go, like let someone else do it, delegate that, focus on what you bring to the table that the next person does not. Basically, don't do entry-level work when your time is better spent tapping into your genius. And our genius comes out of our experiences. It's not that we're the smartest people in the room. Sometimes we're just the most experienced. We've withstood the test of time. We're battle tested. So that's what we bring to the table that the next person that's 18 years old or 21 years old or right out of college or doing a career change, whatever the case may be. So just basically just delegate, let it go. And that's not what I'm talking about. Those things are extremely important for a business owner, for an entrepreneur, for someone that has a hobby that might be a little bit time consuming and they're wanting to do more with their hobby or whatever is important to them. It has more than that. So when I say doing more, accomplishing more with less, I'm talking about less time. Time is the one thing that we can't buy. We can't buy an extra second to yesterday. Yesterday's already gone. We can't add an extra minute to today. There can't be 24 hours and 1 minute in a day. It's capped at 24 hours. And it's however we want to spend that time that is basically going to move the needle on what's important to us. For a lot of us, sleep is important. It's really important to me, but because it makes me a better dad, it makes me a better person, it makes me a better friend, it makes me a better loan officer, real estate agent, whatever the case may be. So sleep is extremely important to me. Spending time meditating, praying, exercising, all of those are things that aren't necessarily going to directly add money to my bank account. They're not going to add necessarily a transaction directly to my book of business, to my pipeline. But it's going to make me a better person, a better human in order to engage with all of the above. So how am I able to accomplish more with doing less? And I'm going to use the example of my kids because, my kids are my number one priority. They're 8, 10, 14, and they are looking up to me. They're depending on me. They're relying on me. And for the longest time, I have adult children as well. And so for the longest time, I thought the best way that I could love them is to give them everything that I didn't have growing up. Now, I made a huge mistake in that assumption because my kids didn't want more money. My kids wanted more dad. My kids did not want more trips or things. They wanted more experiences, talks, memories with dad. And I was a young dad, and so I deprived my adult children of what I'm describing here. But I learned from those mistakes. That way I don't make those again with my younger children. Again, they're 8, 10, and 14. And it was about 3 years ago where I was forced to rethink life, and I was forced to reprioritize things. And I took very seriously the assignment at hand, which was, what's the next best thing you could do at this very moment? And I promise you this, it wasn't going out and working a 10, 12-hour day. It was probably spending 10, 12 hours in deep thought, meditation, prayer, intention to give my children what they truly want and need. And at that moment, it was having their dad show them, not tell them, show them that everything was going to be okay. And for them, and in that situation, money wasn't going to buy that. And I had to invest a lot of time on that assignment. And while I was spending so much time focused on the family, focused on me, focused on growth and stability, I still had a business to run. I still had clients to manage. I still had a team that was looking to me to bring in some deals, to let's win together. We're in competition together. Let's go out and win together. And so I had to show up for that. And so I did the best that I could. And for the longest time, I thought I was failing because things graduate so slowly when it comes to children. And so all I could do was just do good from 1 minute to the next, one day to the next with the kids. And again, I don't get too preachy with them, but I say a lot through my actions. And so that's a long process, especially when you're not getting that feedback of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Or, hey, good job with this. I really learned this today. It takes time. And so the results weren't in yet when it came to the kids. Now with work, it's a lot different because you can monitor, what transactions are coming in, what are getting closed, what are not, what's the team doing? Is the team doing well? Am I pulling my weight as a team lead? And so when I looked back at, let's just say, for example, 2023, and then, this year, 2024, and I look back and I'm thinking to myself like, whoa, that was pretty cool because we accomplished a lot, not only professionally, but we accomplished a lot personally. And how I gauge the personal aspect of things is spiritual. How am I doing spiritually? How are the kids doing spiritually? How is everybody doing emotionally? How is everybody doing academically? How is everybody doing as far as their relationships with each other? And you fast forward to today, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know how I accomplished so much professionally while spending so much time on other things, whether it's time with the kids, whether it's coaching soccer, whether it's, going to the gym, training for, I did a half marathon this year. I did a full marathon this year. I did a 25-mile rim to rim Grand Canyon hike. That took a lot of time to train and prepare for that. How was I able to do all of the above while at the same time maintaining my business, maintaining relationships, making each and every one of my clients feel like they're the only client that I have, the only one that I'm working with? And I call it magic, but it's not magic, it's logic. And what I mean by that is if you really lean into your faith, and if you really trust yourself as a professional, as a person, as a human, then naturally, organically, all of the right decisions are going to be made. A lot of the right connections are going to be made. Not everyone's going to want to do business with you, and that's okay, because a lot of those that didn't decide to go with you, they weren't going to be a good add to the team. I see my clients as part of the team, because they're wanting to accomplish something, and I need their help to accomplish that. So in that sense, we're on the same team. And so just not trying to be all to everybody, but just to be true to who I am, and to those who entrust me with if it's a real estate transaction, their real estate transaction. If it's their refinance, their refinance. If it's someone that's attending a workshop or a service that I'm teaching or preaching at, just those people that want to be there for the right reasons. And it creates this synergy, because everyone's pulling their weight, everyone's bringing their positivity, their energy to the table. And so it makes everybody go further, faster. And that's one of the things I was able to see in hindsight. I didn't see it while we were there, because there's so much on my plate that, it's like a juggling act a little bit. And so it was really cool to just see that what we were able to accomplish professionally, financially, while maintaining the integrity of everything else that's really, really important. And I want to wrap this up with this, because if I've hit my income goals, if I've hit my professional goals, even if I've, hit my personal challenges, like for example, when I challenged myself to do a half marathon in June, and I checked off that box, and that was a personal accomplishment for me. When I was training for the rim to rim height and accomplished that was an accomplishment for me. And then of course the marathon, like I mentioned earlier. But when I can look at what's truly important to me, and that's, how did I show up for my kids? Was I there for them? Did they feel seen? Did they feel heard? Was there ever a time where I made them feel neglected, or that they weren't my top priority, or that they weren't a priority? That's the lens that I looked at everything through. And in hindsight, and I asked my kids that too, like, hey, how am I doing as a dad? Is there anything I could do differently? Is there anything that you don't like? And just getting that feedback along the way. And so when I believe in my heart that I've done everything I can do for them as a father, that means the world to me. To me, that's my number one win. But then when I'm also able to provide for them financially, get them some nice Christmas gifts. We did some Christmas shopping here recently, and it felt good to be able to gift to them. But then also judging their fruit as well, because I loved seeing the heart of my kids. Actually, I learned a lot from my kids, and they remind me what's really important, because when they are wanting to forego some of their gifts to give to somebody else, that's a feather in my cap as their father. But then also it challenges me, how can I step up and show up the way that they're stepping up and showing up for, as kids? Because if it's my 10-year-old making that kind of executive decision, that's great for a 10-year-old. That doesn't hold the same weight for a 47-year-old like myself. So what can I do to level up, to challenge myself? And as I digress, that's my number one piece of advice for people, is to not be afraid to put a lot of these other things that are not going to show up on the balance sheet. They're not going to show up on the bank statement. They're not going to show up on the pipeline report. But it's the reason why we work so hard, is because we want to enjoy a very good life. Not necessarily lifestyle. I think the lifestyle is a byproduct of a good life. I don't think the lifestyle that a good life is a byproduct of a good lifestyle. And so having a good life, a life that we can be proud of, if today's our last day on earth and we only have 30 seconds to say our goodbyes, that we have that sense of accomplishment because we're going out on top. And it's not about what the bank account looks like. It doesn't matter what our house looks like. It's, what does my legacy look like? And I have kids, I've been blessed with kids, but for those that don't have kids, your legacy is all the people that you've impacted over the course of your life and lifetime. And I get it. We weren't always saints, right? We might have hurt some people along the way, but, looking at, the last year, how many people did I help? How many people did I have a positive impact on? And it can be something as simple as telling the cashier at the grocery store, I really like your smile, or you know what, I really like that shirt, or you know what, you're just a super positive person and you brightened up my day. Because we don't know what that person's going through and we may never ever see him again, but we paid them a compliment to uplift them. Number one, because we mean it, but also to uplift them because we don't know who's having a bad day. And I don't want to be drastic or dramatic, but let's just say that they were contemplating suicide, and it was that compliment, that simple compliment, that took them off the edge, woke them up, and then that wake-up call, that jolt of life, is all that they needed to go out and have a positive impact on the people that they already know, the people that they're going to meet. You get my point. I love that concept of the butterfly effect. How the flutters of the butterfly wings can have an impact, ever so slightly, but still an impact on a typhoon on the other side of the world. I do believe that everything is interconnected. And again, this is just me leaning into my faith. And regardless of what your faith background is or isn't, what we put in our imagination, into our brain, what we stew over, what we let marinate as far as our thoughts, whether they're positive or negative, that's basically what's going to manifest. We know that. It's proven. And so for me, I like to stay positive, but at the same time, I like to stay proactive as well. And I try hard not to overthink anything. It's a blessing and a curse, I think. But more importantly, how can I be the best version of myself? And again, the best version of myself isn't always working 10, 12-hour days. Now, sometimes it is. My grandfather was a cotton farmer, and he did a great job of being a grandfather, being a father, or being a friend, of being someone that was active in the community, serving the community. But when it was the harvest season, he was working long days, but because the cotton wasn't going to wait for him to go do everything else, it was time to harvest. And so I'm not saying 10, 12-hour days are bad, but it needs to be strategic. It can't be an everyday thing. And so that's a topic for a whole different day. But as you go into this next year, or if you're watching this midway through the year and there's already been several months that have elapsed, it's not too late to pivot and go a different direction. And even if you're just changing your coordinates by 1/8 of a degree, in the long run, we're literally moving thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles different because of that minor course correction. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to check this out. Stay tuned for a lot more content, just stuff that's top of mind as I navigate through my experiment, this thing I called life. And again, thanks for staying tuned to the Mike Baltazar Experiment. Have a fantastic day.